not far from the Amazon forest in South America lies a beautiful country called Peru. Oh yes, you've heard so much about them. Machu Picchu. Machu Picchu. Machu Picchu is one of the things that stand out for me so very much. Today we are going to have a conversation with Mr. Abel Cardenas. He prefers Mr. Abel Cardenas, and there's so much to his name. If you just tuned in, this is the AM Ghana show. My name is Prince Michael, and like we do it all the time, we bring you nothing but best and crisp information with regards to what goes on in the world. He is the head of mission for the Embassy of Peru here in Ghana. I'll tell you something. How well do you know that Peru is 200 years? Peru is 200 years. And together we say Happy Independence Day to them. Bienvenido al show, señor.
Thank you very much, Michael. Thank you, and also thank you to Adowa TV for having me this morning here to talk to all the Ghanaian people in the occasion of the celebration of the 200th anniversary of the independence of my country, Peru. Just like you said, we are celebrating 200 years of independence. That makes us not that old either, but of course we are not that young. We have held some experiences in these 200 years that I think that could be really interesting, not just to share with my own citizens, but also to share with Ghanaian people in general. It's really important to learn from the experience and the past experience of other people, especially because in situations and times like the ones we are living now regarding this pandemic, we have some things to learn and some mistakes to avoid.
Right. So on this note, I say Feliz Independencia. 200 years is not easy.
Thank you. He has been practicing, huh?
Yes, of course, I've been practicing a bit of Spanish, yes. Thank you. So we'll go for a quick breather. When we come back, Señor Cardenas is in the studios with us. We'll talk. To stay.
Announcements on Adwa TV. Contact Adwa TV for your general announcements, proclamations and publications, job vacancies, etc. at a very affordable rate. Call 050-92-57754, 020-9494-258, or visit our marketing desk at Stepwork Premises. Adwa TV, bringing good things to life.
Yeni Masatek, so your kunini roofing industry nim enti Saudi roofina na wadwen Asatek. Asatek wo quality long span roofing sheeter esan nail free. Trese ehia so de dadwabo mu nanso etimu dan no so a pampe amframa anahum entumi nya no hwe. Asatek quality long span roofing sheets with beautiful bright colors with anti-fading and anti-rusting properties. Trese enwe na ache na empanso enti wo ma 30-year warranty. Terms and conditions apply. Asatek quality long span roofing sheet dear. Eyama debia, say a warehouse, school, hotel, hospital, sorry, ana say a wawufi. Use Asatek quality nail free long span roofing sheet to be. Now what dando be jinaso na yino ho. Where delivery services papa bia. And for wonderful kwa Asatek Bema was can order between 3 and 5 working days. Or VIP delivery services so one day pet na Osaka. Which Asatek a chill kwai Watamakono 2 Meridian Road when you could board warehouse na paying Takrade if you kuma number 9 what pay if you kuma Fidelity Bank no voter region so or wakache tatome JN Bank and Chen Hope Asatek sheltering you for life.
Magic Herbal Clinic aya asoya yadi ebibidru ehwe yenkofo na se oba Magic Herbal ye wo Dr. Secretary Ekukudama ombehwew atwi moja ede akolab no mahwehwe omogem se yare bi e wo mogem a Magic Herbal fo abi omopuno se omodu betu edro so na yare wa bi e wo mogem so no omoyefo stroke diabetes ana afeso dompemu yare so dompemu eya ya tutrumika fabra Magic Herbal Clinic ye wondro ede be maw ana se ede bokọ physiotherapist a ye be yo massage ni atwetwe wuntrim se moja entimi endi umu efrisane a physiofo no be hwe ya hwe na ya boa ye numbers no egu TV na se fanama no na tutrumika bra Magic Herbal Clinic yare a yambo so ancho no emane ha oba doctor ebenya oho abotre na wonu wadi nkomo na yare a esi woni pedwam no so no Nyankopon anano so na yenso yetimi aboa.
Welcome back to the Ghana show. My name is Michael, and I'm talking to Mr. Senor Cardenas. I like mentioning Cardenas. You know, these individuals who have Spanish as their language, they don't joke with the letter R, and it always seems to be the stressed letter wherever they speak or whenever they speak. So today we are going to get ourselves abreast with what goes on in Peru. We have probably heard about them. They seem too far away in South America, not too far away from the Amazon forest like I indicated. But today, we're going to get to know more about them. We'll get to know about their culture, food, tourism, and of course, their painful road to long-term independence. We'll also find out, do they have mistakes, or are there situations where they wish they could go back to the drawing board and regain independence and bounce back stronger? Senor Cardenas, so how was the painful journey to independence?
Well, you know that when it comes to talking about independence's process, it's true that all independence's process have had, let's say, a similar path. Okay. You know, the path of struggle, the path of war, and of course, the unfortunate path of death. You know, but that also brings positive things. For example, it brings us these ideas of freedom, these ideas of heroism, and these ideas also of examples to follow. When I say examples to follow, I'm not just talking about heroes per se. You know, I'm not just talking about people who took the flag of freedom and decided to make a fight. But I am also talking about these sociological processes that happen in our countries that makes us who we are. You know, in the case of my country, for example, in Peru, 200 years ago, on July 28th in 1821, which was a Saturday, if I don't recall it wrongly, there was a general, it was an Argentinian general, his name was Don José de San Martín, who declared the independence of Peru. 200 years ago and 200 years later, today, we are celebrating 200 years since that moment. And in these 200 years, we have kept on struggling, you know, we have kept on fighting. But this fight hasn't been like in a proper war. This has been another kind of fight. This has been a fight with development, or to achieve development. That is something that I think we all countries that are celebrating not just independence but also national days, every time we are celebrating also this that time in which we are fighting to achieve this development. Even developed countries need to stay on that path. So it's a continuous fight. Freedom, you know, the first post I had was in New York. And in New York, we have the Statue of Liberty, right? That freedom, it represents freedom. Yeah. But I always say that next to the Statue of Liberty, we should have the Statue of Responsibility. Because you cannot have freedom without responsibility.
That's right.
You know, and what does responsibility means? Responsibility means responsibility comes from a Latin word, the Latin word responsa. Responsa in Latin means answer. Okay. So it is the capacity you have to answer to the things you have done. Okay. You see? And what is the responsibility that freedom and independence gave us as Peruvians in these 200 years? The responsibility of development, the responsibility of achieving egalitarian goals for all the Peruvian population. So that responsibility, I think, is something that not just Peru, but also all countries in the world should keep in mind, because this is something really important.
So beyond attaining independence as a country, because we have several countries, especially Africa, because this is where I find myself
yes,
eventually. And so countries still having economical issues or issues pertaining to be it economics and then the well-being of citizenry. It's all based on the fact that they forgot to focus that, look, right after attaining independence, we have something called responsibility.
Exactly, and that responsibility, as long as freedom does not go away ever, you know, okay. Because we have to be responsible not just in front of our country, not just in front of our citizens, not just in front of our people. We have to be responsible also in front of our family, our couple, our friends, you know, that kind of responsibility that gives us this idea of development in all senses as human beings. And the first step to achieve this is also to see each other as equals. Yes. That is something really, really important. And, you know, as we were talking behind camera some minutes ago, you know, I wanted to recall what we were talking about. And I was saying that whenever a country is celebrating the Independence Day or the National Day, this is not just an opportunity to, let's say, for celebration or to party or, you know, to of course we have to be happy for those things, but it's also an opportunity of learning. Okay. Of learning what? Of learning what was the way in which that country, that particular one, has taken this freedom and responsibility during the time they have been independent.
That's right.
Or during the time
so
they have been...
Independence Day celebrations can be called for days for reflection.
Reflection and learning. Exactly. And you know, there are a lot of things and there are a lot of similarities, for example, between my country and Ghana. Even though Peru and Ghana seem, like, geographically talking, they seem like very far away, but we are not. Let's not forget that with this globalization process, the concept we have regarding space and time has been completely changed. You know, we are now facing a real change between these two concepts. So now, before, let's say, 100 years ago, for a Peruvian to come to Ghana, it would have taken 6 months by ship. Now it only takes some hours, well, some few hours in a couple of planes.
Right, we are going to go to the conversation. It's getting pretty interesting, and at this moment I wish every African leader is watching, because like you have rightfully indicated, that Independence Days are days for reflection and learning. We have a short video on Peru. Let's quickly take a glimpse at it. When we come back, the conversation starts or continues with Senor Cardinal.
The earth, where gods were hidden within stones. And ancient cultures dominated the oceans. A world where death created life. And men communicated with the universe. In this world, where the sun's sweat and the moon's tears protected the chosen ones, a magical legend emerged to forge the Inca Empire, destined to be one of the greatest civilizations of all time.
Tek se wera kochak muna kuiningmi. Kay kalpantis, hanak mampuririnampak.
An empire where the immensity of magical lakes blended with cities that were born from the earth. And the bravest of warriors traveled from unknown oceans to fortresses hidden in the mist. Peru, empire of hidden treasures. 5,000 years of history, still alive. Don't watch the movie. Live it for real. Visit Peru.
Empire of hidden treasures. Peru, the country. We just watched. Look, this tells you alone that they have quite a sophisticated and rich history.
Yeah, you know that according to some studies, in my country, we have the oldest civilization in America. Okay. That was a Caral civilization. Caral civilization has been dated like 5,000 years of existence. So it means that the Caral civilization is almost as ancient as Egyptian civilization. Yeah. You know, and this is really interesting because what we just watched on the video was, let's say, the last part of the Pan-Peruvian civilization, which was the Incas Empire. Okay. You know, we Peruvians define ourselves as part of or descendants of the Incas Empire. The Incas Empire was a very interesting empire because there are some, let's say, between quotation marks, investigations and rules that somehow try to explain the development of people and societies. One of them, for example, is an investigation made by an incredibly nice linguist, which name was Ferdinand de Saussure. Ferdinand de Saussure has always been called like the father of the modern linguistics. Mm-hmm. Ferdinand de Saussure said that there is no organized thought without writing. If you don't write, you don't organize your thoughts. And if you don't organize your thoughts, it's impossible for you to have a great civilization. My country is a demonstration that that was not so true, because the Incas Empire didn't have a writing per se, but they developed an incredibly huge civilization. Another one is that, for example, in the case of some studies of international relations, there is a very known theorist which name is Hans Morgenthau. He created a theory which name is the political realism. In this theory, according to Morgenthau, human nature is only one, unique and constant, and it's never going to change. And one thing that humans always are trying to achieve is power. Okay. And the way of achieving and exercising power is usually by means of violence. That is also something that we can, let's say, in the case of the Peruvian history, we can say that it wasn't exactly like that. For example, in the case of Caral, 5,000 years ago, yeah. Caral was a culture, a Peruvian culture. They didn't have an army, and they ruled. You know, in the case of the Incas,
without an army,
you know, so they still ruled. And according to some studies, it seems that Caral was ruled by women at that time, 5,000 years ago. Well, you know, this is something that we can discuss a lot about.
Of course. Okay,
but this is something really interesting. Right. So is that, as you can see, there are many things that we can learn from the past. My country has a very rich past. You know, the Incas Empire, we still have some, say, like of the and stuff like that, because they form their own identity. And what you have just seen, thank you very much for the video, it was really nice. It's a very big part of the Peruvian identity. You know, as I said, we all define ourselves as descendants of the Incas.
Exactly. When you take Africa, for instance, Africa seems to be one of the continents that has countries struggling with power handling, or yeah, of course, power handling and power maintenance. Example, in Ghana per se, we suffered at least 3 or 4 coups until eventually in '96 we had our general elections that was done the civilian way. Now, one part of your history, I mean, as a country, tells me that between 63 and 76, it wasn't so easy because you had to have power switches, military taking over, and all that. Can we go a bit into that?
Yeah, well, of course, as any other country, you know, this, let's say, coup d'etats and this kind of governments that come one after the other without democratical elections is part of our own history. It has to do with sometimes ideological aspects, sometimes ideological ways of seeing the international, the national reality, sometimes with different points of view about development, and sometimes also with different points of view about the importance of the citizen of a country. You know, this is something we have learned after our coup d'etats, you know, that thanks God, my country has been a democracy for the last 30 years. We didn't have any, let's say, real problem regarding or real affection to democracy in that sense.
So in the last 3 years?
In the last 30 years.
30 years.
30
so
years.
That means for close to about 170 years, it was autocratic rule?
No, it wasn't an autocratic rule. Let's say for those 110 and 70 years, we had some intermissions. Okay, so it wasn't like sustainable
so
on
time. It was a dynamic system.
Yeah, it was very sustainable. But what was the reason? Most of it, that we had some ideological differences that led us to those things. Nowadays, the world, you know, we are talking about a global village. You know, ideologies are something which are not that important right now. Okay. Now, the world and also governments must be more pragmatical. You know, instead of thinking about an ideology, instead of thinking about something, what we have to do is think about what really works and apply it. You know, we have to see, okay, did this work? Yes, it did, so I'm going to take it, and I'm going to do it. Did this work? No, it didn't, so I'm not going to take it. Why? Because if we don't do that and we are trying to apply to ideologies, we are going to lose too much time. And a globalization world does not allow us to do that. I remember when I was a student still, somebody asked me what the globalization process was. I'm talking about almost 25 years ago. And at that moment, I didn't really know what to answer. You know, I made, of course, a lucubration, right? But then a friend of mine gave me the best concept of globalization I've ever had. He told me globalization is like Africa. And I said, like Africa? How? And he told me, yes, because in Africa, when the sun arises, the lion wakes up. And the lion knows that it has to run faster than the gazelle in order not to starve and die. At the same time, the gazelle also wakes up. And the gazelle knows that it has to run faster than the lion not to die. Okay. So in Africa, doesn't matter if you're a gazelle or you're a lion. The sun has risen, you'd better run.
Yeah, because there's survival.
We are living in a world like that. You know, the sun has already risen, so we have to begin running. But the point is that we have to run to a particular place which is going to lead us to development. And development is not just about numbers. Development cannot be just about, let's say, how much your GDP is or how much money you're making. It has to do also with the well-being of your population. You know, we are trying now, at least in Peru and in America in general, we are trying to see ourselves as anthropocentrical countries. What does that mean? What does this mean? It means that we are trying to see the human being as the center of the entire state. You know, for us, it's important to see that and to try to make the human being well. I'm not saying that we have achieved it. You know, we still have a long way to go in order to do this. But at least we are trying. The approach, at least to have a conceptual approach about this, it's something important. Exactly. And I can tell you that these 200 years, one of the biggest lessons is this. We have to take care of our population. Exactly. It's not just about numbers.
Exactly. In Ghana, we can talk about Kwame Nkrumah. Of course. We have a lot of gentlemen in line of celebration. In conclusion, before we conclude with the independence race and journey to independence, who are some of these gentlemen that, offhand, you will celebrate on any other given day?
Well, we have many, right? Juan Pablo Vizcardo y Guzman, for example, was a priest, a Jesuit that really helped with this a lot. We had also Solitario de Sayan, that was another great independentist ideological person. But we also had some other people that were, let's say, like executioners of this stuff. There's a case of a guy whose name was Jose Gabriel Condorcanqui. He's also known as Tupac Amaru II. You know, he was the first Indian that really made a rebellion against the Spanish rule at the moment. It's true that this rebellion wasn't exactly because he wanted Peru to be independent, but he began to put the roots for the independentist movement in my country. No? We have a lot of names that we can talk about, but I think that, as I said before, it's more important to think about it as a complete sociological process in which a lot of people participated, just like unknown people, you know, because the people that really fought the battles are people which names we don't really remember now, and they were there. And those are the people which must be celebrated in a day like this. Why? Because it's because of them we are here now having this conversation, and I'm having this amazing tea with you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So let's now drift our focus to religion. In Ghana, we are known, even though we have diverse religions in the country, I mean, per what our constitution requires, the freedom of worship. Now, how about Peru? Is that the freedom?
Yes, of course. We consider ourselves as a like country. It means that the state has no religion. Okay. However, we, of course, let's say, recognize the importance of Catholic Church in the whole historical process of Peru, because Catholic Church has always been there since the times of colony, and it's still there. I think that in terms of religion, freedom of religion is something really open in Peru. We have, as I said before, right, freedom comes with responsibility. So we have this responsibility of letting people say what they think, letting people believe in what they want to believe, letting people be happy the way they want to be, as long as they don't hurt anybody.
It is believed that the coming of the Europeans, I'm talking about the Portuguese, the British, and all that.
Spanish in our case.
Because Spanish, we have some of the intricacies of Spain, or the Spanish showing in Angola and other countries. Now, it is believed strongly that colonialism took away most of our heritage, especially religion, as a people. That's happened to Peru.
Yes, yes, of course it happened to Peru. You know, we have a lot of traditions that were lost, or sometimes some others were imbricated, culturally talking. You know, so you can find some vestiges of the ancient Peruvian religion that are mixed with some Catholic rituals, for example, right? Yeah, of course, it has happened. And this is something really important, at least, you know that I have been here in Ghana for a year and a half now. And in this past year and a half, of course, unfortunately, because of this COVID situation, I didn't have the time and also the opportunity to really know the country, to really know the people, but I have tried to do my best. Okay. And in this time, even with the COVID situation, I have realized that, for example, Ghanaians, you have something that is a very big advantage, and it's something that Peru, at least in the case of my country, we could learn from you. I know that your traditional religion is alive here in Ghana, but it's not just like, you know, let's say something touristical. No, it's for real. You have kept a religion for more than 4,000 years alive and practicing the same rituals as it were before in the olden times. So that is something that I am really interested in, because I know that if you could do it, perhaps we could resurrect some part of ours. Because just putting aside the religious aspect, you know, and the spiritual aspect of the religions and all those things, we have to talk about the cultural aspect of religion. This belongs to our tradition. This gives us identity, who we are, where we come from. And we cannot deny that we come from ancient religions that, in your case, are still there. You want to know where you come from, you can go there. You can go to a shrine and you're going to see it. In the case of my country, unfortunately, we don't have the chance. So that's something I'm really interested in. So perhaps we could get a means of cooperation in this regard, because just as Peru, with 200 years, have some things to teach to Ghana, Ghana also has a lot of things to teach to my country.
Right.
Of course.
So we are still trying to get up close and personal with a South American country, Peru, right here on the AM Ghana show. My name is Prince Michael once again, and I am talking to Senor Cardinal.
He's really practicing. Yeah, I really like the way he pronounces the R. Senor. He says incredible.
Of course. I mean, I like the tonation and the confidence they speak with.
Yes, yes. You do too, huh? You could pass for a Peruvian in no time.
I'd love to be there. I'd love to be there.
You should. You know, let's wait until this pandemic stuff is over, and I suppose that everything's going to come back to normal. Well, perhaps not to normal as it used to be before, but at least it's going to be safer.
We are going to get very deep into coronavirus, but before then, let's talk about economy for a while.
Okay.
Ghana, we can boast of a lot of things. We can boast of gold, diamond, bauxite, cocoa.
Yes.
And of course, we can even boast of maybe our beautiful landscapes, of course, which contributes in forms of tourism. How about Peru? What are some of the things that stands out, or some of the things that bring something in return?
Well, Peru has diversified some of that production and also our international trade. Peru has always been known as to be a mining country. Okay. You know, we produce a lot of copper. We are one of the first producers of copper of the world. Also gold. We are also one of the first producers of gold of the world. But we are not just there. We have also making our textile industry grow, right? Our textiles are now very strong. Well, this COVID stuff, as you can imagine, has destabilized a little bit all this stuff, but I know we are going to continue on this path. Also, our agricultural sector. You know, agriculture is something really important for my country, and we have an agro-industry which is very, very growing and let's say, strong, and it's getting stronger. For example, the production of asparagus. Peru is the first producer of asparagus of the world. We sell all the asparagus that the Chinese market eat, you know, and the Chinese market is huge. You can imagine how much is our production of asparagus. And this leads me to another thing, which is, for me at least, it's something really important regarding economy. There are some things that most of countries take for granted. One of those is food. Okay. You know, food is something that is taken for granted everywhere you go. You know, for example, you come to Ghana and there's Ghanaian food, and Ghanaian people enjoy Ghanaian food. And some foreigners, like myself, enjoy Ghanaian food too, because you have really nice, really nice dishes like the palava sauce, which is one of my favorites, or the groundnut soup, you know, with this bowl rice, which are, oh my God, amazing. Or, well, the fufu with light soup, especially the goat light soup, is amazing too.
Oh, you love light soup?
Oh, yes.
I see.
I really do, you know.
Let me find out from, let me find quickly.
Yes,
let me chip with this thing quickly while you sip your tea. How do you, enjoy fufu? Because I've seen a lot of people, white for that matter, do that with spoons.
No. I do it with my with my fingers. That's the way it should be done, you know.
Right.
Other way it would be a misrespect. Come on, that's part of it, and it's part of the whole experience. That's exactly what I wanted to say. Food is not something that should be taken for granted, because food is not just a way of feeding ourselves or having something nice to eat. Food is part of our culture. Food is something that also makes us who we are. So food is something that must be respected as well. And in the case of economy, it's a very big way of getting incomes. For example, in the year 2017, unfortunately I don't have other numbers right now, food represented 11% of the GDP of Peru. And 11% just food. And you are talking about almost $11,000 million just in food. So you can imagine that we are talking about something that can really give you money. But what you have to do is, as in everything in life, get organized. You know, yeah, because as long as our things are organized, they work.
When you talk about Italy, when you talk about Italy, everybody says gelato. It's either gelato or it's pizza. They have been able to, make their traditional dishes, international.
Of course.
What would you want to tell the Ghanaian people? Because obviously we have a lot of meals. We have fufu and lard soup, you mentioned. We have a papansa.
The banku with the okra soup, come on, please. What about the TZ with the ayoyo soup?
Yeah,
incredible.
Really. Yeah, right, so help us understand. Because you said at some point that was almost about 60% of the GDP.
No, 11%.
11% of the GDP.
Which is a big amount.
Right. How can Ghana emulate this?
That is the point. What I was telling you. You know, one important thing is that things should be organized, you know. And this is another lesson we have learned in 200 years in my country. We all need organization. As long as we are organized, things work. If these things are not organized, they don't work. What do I mean by this? For example, when you talk about the best cuisines of the world, you're talking about France, you're talking about Italy, you're talking about Japan, you're talking about Peru, sorry. But it's
not necessary.
So we are talking about, but what is the characteristic of these cuisines? The characteristic of these cuisines is, for example, just to say, to say an example, let's talk about, let's say, Japanese food, for instance. If you have a Japanese sashimi of fish in Tokyo, that must be prepared exactly the same way of the Japanese sashimi you're going to have it here in Accra, in any restaurant, in any Japanese restaurant. Why? Because that food is organized. If you want to call something sashimi, you have to prepare it like this. You change something, okay, you can say it's delicious, but you don't call it sashimi because it's not. We are not going to recognize it like that. So we have to give unification to food.
So, but then research has it that, you know, when you go to the foreign countries, fufu is pounded here in Ghana, but in outside in the diaspora, it's powdered form. Are you saying these are some of the things that has made us lose the efficacy of a food like fufu because it's not done the same way?
The same way, and it should be done. You know, for example, Italy. When you talk about Italian food has a particular way of being done. Okay. It's not just noodles or pasta, because people think about pasta, you know, I get some noodles and I just put them on the pan and it's going to be all. No, there is a whole procedure that you have to follow to call it Italian. The same thing happens to Peru. We have had the chance to unify our recipes. So we say, for example, I remember when I was a child, let's say one of my favorite dishes from my food, from Peruvian food, is ají de gallina. We could say, let's say, it should be something like chile hen, but it's made of chicken, it's not made of ham. But, for example, that was one of my favorites. However, when you tasted ají de gallina, this dish tasted different depending on what house you were going to eat. Okay. Because my mom used to prepare it in a different way, my sister or my aunt or my friend or my girlfriend used to prepare it. So everybody used to prepare it in a different way. Okay. So you are not talking about the same dish. And if you don't talk about the same dish, how are you going to sell it outside?
Exactly, right. So obviously, I mean, something we're not going to dispute, one of the contributing factors of most countries' GDP is tourism. Because when you go to Canada, they have the Nova Scotia. When you go to Kenya, they have the Takai Safari that's done so well.
You come here, and also you have Tamale and
you have the Titicaca. How close is Titicaca to Peru?
Titicaca is in Peru.
It's in Peru.
Yes, yes. The Titicaca Lake is a lake which is shared between Peru and Bolivia.
I see.
So half of it is in Peru and the other half is in Bolivia.
So how far is that contributing to the country's GDP?
Well, tourism is also a very, very big part of GDP. You know, tourism. When you talk about tourism, you talk about three main aspects. Tourism is not let's say, it's not an abstract concept. It's something that you can really see. The three main aspects of tourism, the columns of tourism, are the activities of tourists. For example, when a tourist comes, let's say, to Ghana, or when a tourist goes to Peru, the tourist, what is the tourist going to ask for? He's going to ask for where to sleep. So you're talking about infrastructure, hotels, and hospitality. He's going to ask for what to eat. So you're talking about food and a gastronomical offer that is going to satisfy this person, and what he's going to do. So you're talking about activities, something fun for him to do. Okay? So you take these three columns and you have a touristical enterprise, you have a touristical business in your country. In the case of Peru, we have invested a lot in infrastructure. For example, you go to Cusco, which was the capital of the Incas Empire, and you are going to find a very big infrastructure regarding especially hotels. You have hotels for all kind of prices for all kind of people. You know, people which want to pay thousands of dollars for just one night in a room, but they are going to have, let's say, an incredible experience, or people who are not so interested in sleeping, So they just want to leave their things somewhere and let's say go partying or learning. And the second thing, as I said, is food. The Peruvian cuisine is right now trying to become the second most varied cuisine of the entire world. I said the second because the first is China. It's impossible to compete with China.
Oh, because China has the dumplings and all the nice.
Not just dumplings. You imagine also the population, the geography, everything. But we are trying to be the second most varied cuisine of the world. According to some studies, in Peru, in Peruvian cuisine, we have a little bit more than 20,000 different dishes.
I see.
So it gives you the idea that if you eat a Peruvian dish for breakfast, a Peruvian dish for lunch, and a Peruvian dish for dinner, you could eat without repeating the dish for the next 30 years of your life. So it gives us also the idea that no Peruvian citizen has tasted all Peruvian food.
So there are varieties.
Yeah, it's because my country is also big. You know, we have almost 1,400,000 square kilometers. And that's the second thing. So you have to give them a gastronomical offer, but a gastronomical offer which is going to satisfy them. And don't forget that every tourist has a different taste. So you have to satisfy every taste. That is also something that you have to think. And the third part is how the activities these tourists are going to make when they come to the country. Now, this also has to do with different kinds and several kinds of interests that you can also develop. For example, there are people which are interested in nature. There are people which are interested in history. There are people which are interested in archaeology. There are people which are interested in what we call now vivencial tourism, that they want to go, let's say, I want to go to a tribe and live inside that tribe as if I were part of the tribe for 15 or 20 years or 20 days. So you see, you live as if you were disconnected from
your original people,
yeah,
so the new ones.
And also mystical tourism, because there are people which like, for example, to experience mystical things. So you go to shamans, you go to different kinds of rituals that you can also develop. There are people which are really interested in archaeology, for example. So those people are the people which you are going to show them your museums and all those things. But there are other people which are, for example, interested in these dangerous sports, right? They like to jump from an airplane, they like to climb a mountain. So that's the point. Tourism has these three things, and these three things need to be developed. These three columns need to be developed, and they need to be built in any nation. Infrastructure for hotels and people where to stay, the development of food and a gastronomical offer that can satisfy them, and the third part is the activities that can be also developed by building infrastructure. You know, people like to go, for example, you have the Volta Lake here. The Volta Lake is the biggest artificial lake of the planet. So that's something that people could be interested in sailing in, you know?
Right.
Oh, yeah, of course. It's something.
I had a conversation with a white, I mean, he is a traveler. He was telling me that, look, apart from the food, one thing you can boast about in Italy is about the fact that they have a lot of water bodies, Verona, Vicenza, where you're going to, you know, have beautiful pergolas.
Yes, of course.
The pergolas, you're going to enjoy yourself. Now, I spoke about Peru, and he said, oh, no, not too. They have a lot of places to visit, but not too much because they don't have a lot of, you know, seas or resorts to enjoy, but rather they have a lot of mountainous places. And Colca Canyon, he mentioned a lot of that. How true is this?
Well, the Colca Canyon is a very nice place, but it is not true because we have places where you want to sail. For example, don't forget that the Amazonas River, which is the longest river of the world, is born in Peru. As a matter of fact, 1/3 of the territory of my country is jungle. The Amazonian jungle.
That's dangerous because I watched Anaconda.
Oh, yeah. You got scared.
Of course, I watched Anaconda, and I won't want to go to Amazon forest. But
no, you should.
Over time,
You're gonna love it.
I grew over that.
You're gonna love it.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, of course. If I mean, you have to take some measures, right? Some security measures. But for example, there we have, as I said before, you know, regarding this stuff of investment, you really need to invest in infrastructure. If you don't invest in infrastructure, it doesn't matter what you have. People are not really going to enjoy it. For instance, let's talk about the jungle. Right. You said, I wouldn't go to the jungle because I watched this film Anaconda, and there were these huge serpents that were eating people. Well, it wasn't like, it's not like that. An anaconda is not going to attack you like that. It
do they
hardly ever
exist?
happens. Yes, of course they do, and they have 20, 30 meters
I want to
long.
find out something before you continue. What's the difference between an anaconda and a boa constrictor?
Oh, that's a very good question. Unfortunately, I am not a technician.
Okay.
However, what I can tell you is that anacondas, I think one of them, I'm not sure which one, lives more in rivers, and the other on land.
Okay.
I think it's the boa constrictor, the one that lives more on the ground.
Okay.
I think so, but I'm not sure.
You're not
But
sure.
I promise I'm going to find it out and let you know.
Exactly. Thank you.
You know, it's because I forgot these classes of the school. It's been a long time since I went to school too. But the point is that what I was telling you is that what Peru has been very interested in is in investing in infrastructure, you know, especially for people to enjoy these things. For instance, when anybody comes to Africa, when I was posted here to Africa, the first things, for example, that my family used to tell me is, oh my God, we're going to go and make a safari, right? Because that's the first idea that comes to your mind. The same thing that the first idea that comes to your mind when we talk about the Peruvian jungle is, oh, I watched an anaconda, and I saw Jennifer Lopez, you know, fighting a very huge serpent. Who could forget Jennifer Lopez, right? But the point is that the point is that, of course, you can enjoy all those things as long as you give security to the people. And you need to invest in infrastructure so nobody's going to have any kind of accident. I can come to Africa well, unfortunately, this is something that we cannot do here in Ghana. But let's say I want to see a lion, or I want to see, I don't know, a tiger, you know.
Maybe a giraffe.
As long as you develop the infrastructure, you can really take advantage of that resource and show it in touristical purposes for all the people.
Right.
But you have to invest. So that is the point. Now, regarding this stuff, I really wouldn't really agree much with this your Italian friend, because my country has made a lot of investment regarding this infrastructure for touristical purposes. Of course, there is much more that we still have to do, you know, but we all agree that tourism is what people call the industry without chimneys, right? Okay. Why? Because it's a very good way of getting resources, generating a very big income, and generating jobs. You know, exactly. That is why tourism is something that all governments should really be interested in. And as I told you, tourism, if we are going to disaggregate tourism, we have to disaggregate it into these three pillars we have spoken about: infrastructure, food, and activities.
From where I sit, I would want to understand that tourism culture of Peru goes extensively, even to dressing, the clothing, festivals, and all that, which I'm pretty much sure we're going to continue. We have just 4 minutes to wrap up this wonderful conversation, rather unfortunate. But before we go, in Ghana, I was really wondering what was going on in the outside world with regards to COVID-19 and how they were fighting it. At some point, I got to hear that one South American country, Brazil, was one of the countries that was really battling the virus. How about Peru? What was the fight, or what were measures, or what were some of the things put in place towards fighting this?
Unfortunately, my country has been dealing with this COVID situation in a very bad way. I mean, we have been very affected. You know, in Peru, we have a lot of people that unfortunately has passed away because of COVID, and there have been so many, almost 200,000 people already that died, and there have been so many that right now in my country you are not going to find anybody which doesn't know a friend or a relative or somebody close that has died of COVID. We all know somebody who has died of COVID in Peru.
Because of the numbers.
Because of the numbers, and also because of the variant of the virus that affected us.
Which one?
You know, we had the Brazilian virus that came, and it was very, very, very easy to be spread. So that's why, for example, some of the measures that we're taking in my country is that people have to wear double face masks. You cannot go out with just one. You need to take two. Other way, it's the infectious process can become. Another thing is the vaccination process. We are really advancing a lot with the vaccination process in Peru. I think that this year, by this week, we are already giving the vaccine from people which are less than 40. So we hope that we are going to give the vaccine for everybody by the end of the year. However, we have to consider one thing too. The vaccine is not enough. Because unfortunately, the vaccines that have been developed so far, they protect us from getting very serious infections, but they don't protect us from getting the infection. And that is the point. You know, when you talk about COVID, you're not talking about just the possibility of dying, because it's also the possibility of getting ill. If you have a very big number of your population ill, you are going to be less people working, less production.
The human resource is going to decrease.
So it means that your economy is really going to be affected. So that's something that we have to think about too. That is why it is not just saying, okay, I'm going to get it, but I'm going to die, you know. Yeah, but you're going to be ill and you're not going to be able to work. So that's something that, you know, we're very concerned. Why? Because, of course, when something like this, a pandemic, affects us, we all try to see the light at the end of the tunnel, right? And the light at the end of the tunnel is, oh, the vaccine. So people say, I got the vaccine, I'm already protected, everything's going to be just fine. But that's not the case. So that's something that we have to understand. And in my country, we are in the process of making people understand this,
right?
You know, in order to avoid further infections. Right now, my country has decided to close the borders to all people which are coming from South Africa, Brazil, and India. People which are coming from those countries cannot get into Peru so far.
Is it because of how different their variant is?
Yeah, because of the difference of the variant. Because we don't want to make more mixtures of variants, because otherwise it's going to be really difficult to fight.
So very soon we are going to wrap up with a conversation with Senor Cardinal. But before we do, we'll go for a short break. But before we do, Senor, in the minutes, tell me something in Twi.
In Twi?
Yeah.
Well... what can I tell you? I can tell you, for example, I can talk to Grace that has come here, and you know she's my Twi teacher, by the way.
Oh, she is.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Grace, asai con fa carno.
Oh, okay. It's saying. It's saying.
It's saying?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
How are you?
Oh. I don't know how to transfer to that, unfortunately. Aye. Huh? Medase.
So we'll go for a short break. We'll come back. We'll wrap up in grand style. Do stay.
Asatec, so your kunini roofing industry nim enti Saudi roofing na wadwen Asatec. Asatec wo quality long span roofing sheeter esan nail free. Try say ehia so de dadoabo mu nanso etim wodan no so a pampe amframa and ehum entumi nya no hwe. Asatec quality long span roofing sheets with beautiful bright colors with anti-fading and anti-rusting properties. Try say every na ache na empanso enti wo ma 30-year warranty. Terms and conditions apply. Asatec quality long span roofing sheet dear. Eya matebia, say a warehouse, school, hotel, hospital, sorry, ana say a wawufi. Use Asatec quality nail free long span roofing sheet to be. Now what dando be jinaso na yin ho. Your delivery services papa bia. Enfa honde for kwa Asatec bema was can order between 3 and 5 working days. Our VIP delivery services so one day pet na Osaka. Hwehwe Asatec achi kwan Watermark 22 Meridian Road woni Cocoa Board Warehouse na pen Takrade Efie Kuma number 9 wo pen Efie Kuma Fidelity Bank no Voter Region so wo wakache Tatome GN Bank and Chen Hope. Asatec, sheltering you for life.
So at this point, we unfortunately have to wrap up the first part of the conversation. We have a lot to talk about because I know you have a lot to ask. I was personally going to ask him about music and arts. But before we do, let's kindly, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are, let's pay homage to Peru as we're about to stand and listen or sing their national anthem. So let's stand with our chord. Yeah.
seámoslo siempre, y antes niegue sus luces, sus luces, sus luces el sol, que faltemos al voto solemne, que la patria al eterno elevó, que faltemos al voto solemne, que la patria al eterno elevó, que faltemos al voto solemne, que la patria al eterno elevó. Largo tiempo el peruano oprimido la ominosa cadena arrastró, condenado a una cruel servidumbre. Largo tiempo, largo tiempo, largo tiempo en silencio gimió, mas apenas el grito sagrado, libertad en sus costas se oyó. La indolencia al esclavo sacude, la humillada, la humillada, la humillada cerviz levantó, la humillada cerviz levantó, cerviz levantó. Somos libres, seamos, lo siempre seamos, lo siempre. Y antes niegue sus luces, sus luces, sus luces el sol, que faltemos al voto solemne, que la patria al eterno elevó, que faltemos al voto solemne, que la patria al eterno elevó, que faltemos al voto solemne, que la patria al eterno elevó.
Right, so thank you very much. That was the anthem of the Peruvian. Yeah, so let's take. So before we do, we will be taking the Ghana national anthem very soon. So let's quickly do that, and let's go. Help us to resist the places we are like the river. Help us to resist the places we are like the river. I wish this was football. I was going to jump and warm up. But this is all corporate. Ladies and gentlemen, I just had a beautiful conversation with Senor Cardinal Piotos. I hope I'm correct, Monsieur.
What? Tupia.
Topia.
Yes.
Topia.
Tupia.
And once again, to all Peruvians out there, I want to say Feliz Independencia.
Día de la Independencia.
Independencia. After 200 years, it's not so
200 years,
easy.
yes.
One day, I would like to be in either Portugal or Peru.
You should go to Peru.
Oh, sure. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, because Peru comes before Portugal because it's E. O comes later.
Oh, right. So I'm going to be in Peru and, of course, going to enjoy the beautiful scenery in the Lake Titicaca. This is where I say goodbye. From henceforth, call me Senor Michael.
Okay, Senor Michael, just a couple of things. I wanted to thank you for
Exactly.
having me this morning.
Right, thank you.
And I want to thank also Adoa TV for this opportunity, you know, and also want to thank all the viewers, the Ghanaian people, for this warm welcoming. Thank you very much.
Thank
and
you.
Feliz Día de la Independencia. As we say
Can I
in Peru,
have
Felices
the Ghana
Fiestas
flag,
Patrias.
please? Can I have the Ghana flag? Thank you. Yes, the flag. And there's a Peruvian flag. So, yes, thank you.
Oh,
so on this note, this is a Peru, this is Ghana. So we have announced our collaboration and our intense friendship with the Peruvian countries. This is the M Ghana Show. My name is Michael. This is where I say goodbye and have a nice day.